Hi, I'm Will. Welcome to the Motion Mates YouTube channel. In this video I want to talk to you about text comps in After Effects. For a long time I was doing text comps exactly the same way in After Effects and having to duplicate tons of layers every time I wanted to change what the text said, change the effect. And since Adobe introduced the Essential Graphics panel, I've just been using that and I've completely changed the way that I do my text comps. So I want to show you in this video how you can use that to make completely reusable and editable text comps that you can change the color of, change the speed and all that kind of thing without having multiple comps. You've only got one text comp. So let's have a look. Let's assume that you've got a bit of footage, maybe you've got a basic edit, and you need to add a series of text comps over the top. So get the text tool, and I'm going to type, "This is some basic text," right? So normally you'd have that, and let's apply some kind of effect to it. So I'm going to zoom in and make a mask around this. Now what I'm going to do is make this nice and long, because we're going to reuse this comp and we don't know how long we're going to need it, how long the lines are going to be. So I'll just make this super long. Okay, and I'll put some animation on it. So I'll come down to animate and add a position, and then I'm going to also add rotation, and I will just rotate this a little bit like that, and I will move it down off the bottom of the box. So now if we come into the range selector and we animate the offset from -100 to 100, and if I look at that now, it's not quite right, so I need to set the shape to ramp up. And now we go, we have a basic animation. I will select the keyframes and add a bit of easing to that. This is I'm just using a plugin called Motion just to basically add a bit of easing to the keyframes. So slow it down a little bit. Okay, so let's say that is our text animation and we're happy with that. Now obviously if you had a ton of these, with a simple animation like this, it's not a huge problem, but I can duplicate this, move that one along, maybe move it over here. And now we have two different text animations. But obviously if you need to come in and you need to change any of the properties of this, you need to change, the start or end or the offset or anything like that, you would have to go through and you'd have to change that on every single bit of text that you have. Now this is a particular example where that makes sense, because normally you would, you might be able to pre-compose this text layer and, reuse it that way. But when you've got effects like this applied to the text layer, you would have to edit all these across all of your text fields, and especially if you had effects and things like that. So let's pre-compose this text field, and I'm going to call this master text box. And now if I double click on this and come into here, what I'm going to do is just move it up to the top left, because we know that the text is going to be left aligned. And a little trick is to click down here on the region of interest and drag this around your comp. So again, I'm going to make it extra long so that we can have, a nice long box. If you needed to have more than 2 lines, then, obviously make this deeper, but I'm going to do it like that. And then I'm going to come up to composition and trim comp to region of interest. And now we have the comp exactly the size that we need it. So I have this, and obviously I can reuse that. But yeah, if I wanted to change the text, I'd have to come over here and I'd call this text box 1, and then I'd duplicate this, go in here, and then maybe I could edit the text on this one. But again, if you want to change any of the properties of the animation, then you would need to change them across all of them. So let me delete that, come in here, and what I'm going to do is open up the Essential Graphics panel. Now this is designed basically for Premiere primarily, so that you could create a comp inside of After Effects and then bring that into Premiere and change the text inside Premiere without coming back into After Effects. But I'm going to use this just inside After Effects to make our lives easier. So if I drop this down, the first thing we're going to want to change is the text. And you need to pop open text here, and you need to grab source text, and you want to drag that into here. Okay, now you can see it's picked the right comp, which is the comp that we're in. If this says something else, then you want to make sure that it says the comp that has the text that you want to edit in it. Now, if I change this, I'll just call this the text. And you may be wondering what that's done. So if I come back to my main comp, you can see now that under this text box, we have essential properties. And if I twirl this down, you can see it says the text. But it might not be immediately obvious how you can edit this, and you can't edit this text directly because it is a comp. But what you need to do is right click on this and go edit value. And now I can say my first text line. And now we've got a comp that basically you can duplicate as many times as you want. And you can drop this down and you can edit each of these. To say whatever you want. And all of that is done inside one comp. So let's just change this as well. Okay, so we have all of our text comps, and you know they're all doing exactly the same animation. So now if I want to edit this, it's really easy. Let me just delete the second text box, because again we only have one text comp that's doing everything. So if I come in here and let's say I want this to be slower, I can drag that out, and now all of my text comps are going to follow exactly that. So with this, you know, it's a simple example, but you may have inside this comp, you may have tons of different effects. You might be doing pixelate, you might be doing distortion, you know, all different kinds of effects that you would have to then replicate across multiple text boxes. But with this, I just have one. So let me make this slower again. So you're not limited just by the text, changing the text. So inside here, I'm going to add a fill. So we add a color fill, and now we can change the color of the text. So if I choose a nice purple, then again, I can expose almost any property inside Essential Graphics. So if I open up the Essential Graphics panel again, make sure we're in the right comp, I can drag this color into the Essential Graphics, and actually it's not this one that you need. So you need to pop open the layer and come down to your effects, and under fill I have my color. So I can drag this in here, and now we have, I'll just leave that as fill color. And again, if I come back to the main comp, now each of these has its own color. So I can come over and I can change its color. And all of the animation stays exactly the same. So you're not limited at all by what you want to change inside the Essential Graphics. And for me, like, this is just so much easier than, I don't know how else you would do it really. Like before Essential Graphics, you would have to duplicate each comp a ton of different times. You'd have text 1, text 2, text 3, text 4, and all different colors. And then if you needed to change any of the properties, you'd have to change them in every single one, or you'd have to copy and duplicate all of that again. And with Essential Graphics, you just have one. Now, there's loads of things you can do with this. So instead of editing the text directly like I did before, I can alt click on this. I can say this comp dot, no, sorry, this layer dot name. And now the text is going to be set to the name of this text box. So I can say second copy line. And if I just click here, Control C to copy that, and then I will paste it onto the text field of the other two boxes. Now each of these is using the comp name. So let's change these to something that makes sense. Let's call this second copy line. And let's go banana. So, I mean, this is quite cool, but the only problem with this method is that I can't now put this onto 2 lines. So let me just undo that because I don't really want that. I'll just delete these 3. So something else I want to do, I'm going to drag a text box onto the timeline, and there we have it. Now I want these text boxes to fade out before we bring another one in. So rather than come in here, so let's say let's speed this up a bit. So 1 second it's going to animate in, and it's going to hold for a second or so, and then here I'm going to fade this out. So if I just press T to get the opacity up and add a couple of keyframes and say, okay, it's going to come in and then it's going to fade out. So let's move this to 3 seconds, and I'm going to hit N to change the work bar, and then Control Shift X or Command Shift X to trim that exactly. So now something you can do is that will work, but what if I want to make some of them stay on screen for longer and some of them to disappear quicker? So something else that they introduced was if I come up to composition and I do responsive design time and I create an intro. Now this is going to create a protected region, right? So this, I can change the length of my comp, and this intro will never change speed. So this will make a bit more sense when we go back into the main comp. But I also want to come to responsive design time and make a outro as well. So I'll extend this by grabbing this little blue handle. I'll extend that to the full length of my outro because I want that fade to always be the same speed. So now in order to see this, I need to bring that back in again. And now you can see that you've got these little blue regions which show the area that's protected. So I can say make this much shorter, but it doesn't just stretch it. It should do the intro animation and the outro animation at exactly the same speed. So I can also say I make this really long. Okay, so what happened there is I didn't make the start section the right length. So you can see when this was the wrong length and I made it really long, it's stretching the second half of that animation there. But if I move this blue handle to the end of there, let's go just over to make sure. Then now, yeah. So I think what I need to do is bring that in again and then take it out. Yeah, so you can see, so when I brought that in again, it made sure that this blue bar region was the right length, like the longer length that I'd made it. So now you can change the length of that. So I can just duplicate this, move this over, and then I'll bring this, let's say we want some text over here. But this second one, I want to be a lot shorter. So let's move that there. Okay, so you can see I've still got my protected speeds. Everything's the same, but I've now got two different text boxes. And let's just take advantage of our settings. So I can make this one green. And I can change the text on this one. Caps. So that's text box. That's how I do all of my text boxes in After Effects. Now, the other thing that makes this quite good is that, say I want to copy this and I'm reusing this in another comp, maybe somewhere else. I can just copy all of those properties that I've set for that text box, and I can just paste them on top of another one. And now that one says nice title, and they're both the same. It's just quite a nice thing because I can just paste this essential properties over, and it respects everything, all of the timing and everything like that. I hope that that's been useful to someone. I know that when I found Essential Graphics Panel, I use that every time now on my After Effects projects, and I hope that somebody else does too. Please like and subscribe, and thank you for all the support and comments that you've given me so far on the channel. Next time.